Reclaimed, The Fall of Utopia. Chapter 1, Shattered Harmony. Finn resided in a city adorned with gleaming spires, an idyllic haven of technology and peace called Utopia. In a world where conflict was obsolete and discontent seemed as outdated as ancient relics, he, like everyone else, had been conditioned to believe in the inherent goodness of this society. That chilly evening, Finn began to notice something different. As a systems analyst, he monitored the city's technological infrastructure. While scanning lines of code that seemed like hieroglyphics, an unusual sequence caught his attention. A command line hidden beneath complex algorithms suggested threat. As Finn explored the code further, a sense of foreboding gripped him, unsettling his thoughts. Each line he deciphered whispered secrets, unraveling layers of deception, slowly revealing a reality that had been meticulously masked by the seemingly flawless facade of Utopia's perfection. Amidst the deceit, a faint but persistent hope lingered, a fragile hope for redemption and liberation for those unjustly cast aside by the city's ruthless and relentless pursuit of flawlessness, and their deep yearning for a more compassionate, just and equitable society that valued every life. His curiosity piqued, Finn navigated through the intricate maze of codes. It felt like stepping into uncharted territory, where every symbol and line unveiled a darker truth. The more he uncovered, the more troubling the revelations became. Utopia was, in essence, a society constantly striving for an idealized perfection. The city's algorithms selected its inhabitants carefully, maintaining a delicate and calculated equilibrium. Every birth, death, and match for marriage, friendship, or career was calculated with ruthless precision to ensure the city's harmonious order remained undisturbed at all costs. Finn discovered a shocking truth that rocked the very foundations of this order. Those who did not fit into the city's definition of perfection, whether physical or mental, were not rehabilitated but exiled, condemned to live in the desolate wastelands beyond Utopia's towering walls. A wave of nausea swept over Finn. His head spun, a deep dread settled in his stomach. His trembling fingers barely managed to shut down the interface before he sank back into his chair, the harsh reality gnawing at his conscience. This was his city, the society he had loved and admired, a city that had been his home since birth. But the flawless surfaces he had walked on, the buildings he had admired, were tainted by a truth he could not ignore. This was the beginning of Finn's awakening, the shattering of his perception of harmony, and the start of a journey that would forever alter the fate of Utopia. Finn couldn't sleep that night, his mind haunted by the revelations. Images of the exiled, the imperfects, pushed into the barren wastes of the outside world, consumed his thoughts. The idea of their suffering was a relentless pain. By dawn, after hours of restless contemplation, his mind was resolutely made up. He knew he had to expose this atrocity. Determined, he meticulously began collecting data, copying the disturbing sequences of code and cautiously storing them on a separate drive, taking every possible precaution to ensure the truth would not be erased. Sipping his coffee, Finn felt the weight of his newfound knowledge pressing down on him. Each passing moment felt like an eternity as he wrestled with the decision to involve Aria. He knew that by revealing the truth to her, he was also exposing her to the same dangers that now loomed over his own life. Yet he couldn't bear the burden alone. With a heavy, reluctant sigh, he finally resolved to share his burden with her, fully aware that the truth could change everything between them. He knew that their bond, once unbreakable, would either strengthen under the weight of their shared secret or completely shatter, crushed by the danger it posed to them both. After 3 long days and restless nights, Finn found himself at a small coffee shop, the gentle hum of conversation around him providing some semblance of normalcy. Across the table sat his closest friend, Aria. Her radiant smile usually brought him comfort, But today it was a painful reminder of the innocence and trust everyone, including her, had in their utopian society. "Is everything okay, Finn?" she asked, concern creasing her brow as she noticed the deep, dark circles under his eyes, the tension in his posture, and the uneasy twitch of his fingers. With a deep breath, Finn made his confession. He explained the forbidden code, the cruel exiles, and the shattered illusion of their perfect city. He watched as Aria's face shifted from disbelief to shock, and finally, to an unsettled quiet. "But why? Why would they lie to us?" Aria stammered, her voice barely a whisper. Finn could only shake his head in frustration. "I don't know, Aria, but we can't let this go. We have to do something about it." Their conversation ended with an uncomfortable silence, an air of unease hanging over them as they parted ways. As Finn retreated to his apartment, he couldn't help but feel a surge of fear. The weight of the truth he carried was heavy, and its consequences unpredictable. He knew his life, and perhaps even Aria's, would never be the same. This was the end of their innocence, the end of their utopian dream. But little did Finn know, as he plunged into a restless sleep, just how drastically their lives were about to change. Unknown to Finn, Aria had reported their conversation to the authorities in her confusion. The next morning, Finn awoke to the sound of heavy footsteps and the ominous hum of drones outside his window. Panic surged through him as he realised the gravity of Aria's actions. His heart pounded as he hastily gathered his things, his mind racing with thoughts of escape and survival. Finn's journey, sparked by a shocking revelation, was about to take an alarming turn. The peaceful haven of Utopia would show its fangs, and the cost of unearthing its sinister secret was far greater than Finn could have ever imagined. As he fled through the city, dodging patrols and surveillance, he could feel the weight of his mission bearing down on him. The once familiar streets now seemed hostile and unforgiving. Finn knew he couldn't trust anyone, not even Aria. His resolve hardened, and he vowed to uncover the truth and seek justice for those who had been wronged, no matter the cost. The battle for Utopia's soul had just begun, and Finn was determined to see it through to the end. Reclaimed, The Fall of Utopia. Chapter 2, The Unseen Veil. Morning light streamed into Finn's room, casting irregular shadows across the walls. He hadn't slept well, plagued by nightmares of the exiled, the unseen victims of Utopia's harsh pursuit of perfection. With tired eyes, he stared at the drive containing the damning evidence, a small device with a devastating secret. He planned to dig deeper into the exile process, hoping to uncover more details when his door chimed. A glance at the security feed made his heart skip a beat. Standing outside were 2 enforcement officers, their stern faces hidden beneath the iconic helmets of Utopia's authority. Finn's pulse quickened. He felt trapped in a nightmare, but fleeing wasn't an option. The truth had to come out, no matter the cost. With shaking hands and a racing heart, he prepared himself for the inevitable confrontation, steeling his nerves for what felt like an inescapable, life-altering moment. The chime rang again, more urgently. Panic surged, and his mind raced to hide the incriminating evidence. In a hurried flurry, he concealed the drive behind a loose panel in the wall, just as the door slid open, revealing the unwelcome visitors. "Finn Montgomery?" one of them asked, his voice flat and cold. "Yes, that's me," Finn replied, swallowing hard. "We've received a report about you discussing destabilizing information," the officer stated bluntly, his gaze sharp and penetrating. "This is a serious offence, Mr. Montgomery." "I don't know what you're talking about," Finn stammered, trying to stay calm. His mind flashed back to his conversation with Aria. Had she reported him? "We'll need to check your system," the second officer said, already moving towards Finn's workstation. As the officer powered up his system, Finn felt a cold knot in his stomach. He glanced at the hidden panel, praying they wouldn't find the drive. He watched anxiously as they conducted a thorough search, their expert eyes scanning every line of code, moving with a precision that only heightened Finn's rising sense of dread and helplessness. After what felt like an eternity, the officers turned back to him, their faces unreadable and stiff. "Your system is clean. But consider this a warning, Mr. Montgomery. Spreading false information can lead to serious consequences," the officer warned, his voice carrying a tone of authority that sent a chill deep down Finn's spine. With that, they left as abruptly as they had arrived, leaving Finn in the unsettling silence of his apartment. His heart pounded as the adrenaline slowly subsided. He kept staring at the door, replaying the last hour in his mind. Now he was being watched, his every move likely monitored. He knew he had to be careful. This close call only intensified his resolve to uncover the truth. He had seen a glimpse of the veil concealing Utopia's dark side, and he couldn't stop until he exposed it completely. With the enforcement officers gone, Finn collapsed into his chair, shaken and pale. His eyes drifted to the wall panel, hiding the incriminating drive. The threat from the authorities was real, but his guilt gnawed at him even more relentlessly. He needed to act, and soon, before the walls closed in around him, and any chance of escaping their watchful eyes disappeared entirely. Despite the risks, he decided to reach out to Aria again. They had grown up together, always supporting each other. He needed to believe that she was as disturbed by the truth as he was, and that she would stand with him in his mission. Later that day, they met in a secluded spot in one of Utopia's public gardens, away from prying eyes and listening devices. Aria was waiting, her usual cheer replaced by a sombre expression. "I'm sorry, Finn," she said as soon as he approached. "I was scared and confused. I didn't know what else to do." Finn's heart ached at her words. He saw regret in her eyes, but also fear, a potent reminder of the stakes they faced. He nodded, forgiving her, but made his resolve clear. "We can't let this go, Aria," he urged. "We owe it to those people, the imperfects. They don't deserve what's happening to them." Aria was silent for a long moment, her gaze fixed on the perfectly manicured garden around them. Finally, she sighed, a mix of resignation and determination in her eyes. "What do we do, Finn?" With a heavy heart, Finn began to outline his plan. He wanted to expose the information to the public, to reveal the facade of their utopian society. Knowing the system could trace the origin of a mass broadcast, they had to be smart. They would need a powerful, untraceable signal booster to do it. As the sun set on Utopia, their plan took shape. Aria left with a renewed sense of purpose, promising to find the signal booster from an old contact in the city's underground network. Finn, on the other hand, would continue his research, hoping to gather more damning evidence against the authority. Returning to his apartment, Finn looked out at the gleaming city, alive with artificial perfection. The gravity of their task weighed heavily on him. For the first time, he saw his home through the unseen veil, the shimmering spires and harmonious order tainted by a harsh, oppressive reality. Beneath his fear and uncertainty, there was a flicker of hope, a belief that they could change things, that they could reclaim Utopia from its descent into dystopia. As night fell, the city lights sparkled like a deceptive promise of perfection. Finn's thoughts wandered to the exiled, the imperfects who had been cast aside. Their suffering fueled his determination. He envisioned a future where Utopia lived up to its name, where every citizen, regardless of their flaws, was valued and treated with dignity. This vision gave him strength, fortifying his resolve to see their mission through to the end. He knew the road ahead was fraught with danger, but with Aria by his side and a clear purpose guiding him, he felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they would uncover the truth and fight for a utopia that was truly just. Reclaimed, The Fall of Utopia. Chapter 3: Dissent and Disbelief. Finn spent the following days investigating more about the city's hidden atrocities, compiling every piece of evidence he could find. At the same time, Aria cautiously integrated herself into the city's underground network to secure the elusive signal booster. As days turned into weeks, Finn's once routine life morphed into a covert mission. By day, he maintained the facade of normalcy at work. By night, he was engrossed in his clandestine investigation. He lived in constant fear of another visit from the enforcement officers and the possibility of their plan being uncovered. Their friendship had transformed. They were now co-conspirators, bound by the unsettling truth they shared. Their interactions were steeped in whispered strategy sessions and shared discoveries, forging a stronger bond that grew with every piece of evidence they unearthed and every risk they took together. Finn's research revealed disturbing details about the exile process. The algorithms didn't just remove the imperfects, they were also designed to erase the memories of these individuals from the collective memory of the city's residents. Families and friends of the exiles were manipulated, their recollections altered to believe that the exiles had opted to leave, seeking a life in solitude. The depth of deception left Finn deeply betrayed and furious, realizing Utopia's foundation was a web of lies and manipulation. This realization intensified his urgency to act. They needed to expose the truth, and soon. His thoughts were interrupted by a message from Aria. She had secured the signal booster. It was riskier than they had imagined, her contact in the underground network demanding a high price for the untraceable device. However, their plan could finally move forward. They met later that night, under the cover of darkness, in an abandoned building on the outskirts of the city. The air was thick with tension as Aria handed over the device, her eyes filled with a mix of excitement and fear. "We're really doing this, aren't we?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, her eyes reflecting a mix of fear and determination as they stood in the dimly lit room. Finn nodded, his grip tightening around the signal booster, his gaze unwavering. "We have to. There's no turning back now, not after everything we've uncovered and the risks we've already taken." Their plan was taking shape, the prospect of revealing the authorities' terrible secret becoming a tangible reality. However, neither fully grasped the magnitude of their impending actions or how it would transform their lives and the fabric of utopian society. In the following days, Finn and Aria worked tirelessly to set their plan into motion. They spent countless hours fine-tuning the signal booster and compiling the damning evidence into a single, compelling broadcast. The abandoned building became their sanctuary, a refuge from prying eyes where they could prepare for their rebellion. The harsh truth they had discovered took shape in the form of recorded messages, carefully outlined documents, and undeniable data from the city's system. Each piece of evidence painfully underscored the authorities' betrayal and the exiles' suffering. Finally, the day arrived. As the city slept, unaware of the storm about to hit, Finn and Aria sat in their makeshift command center, their hearts racing with anticipation. The broadcast was ready, their evidence meticulously compiled. With one final, silent look at each other, Finn pressed the launch key, and the future of Utopia began to unravel. The message infiltrated every screen in Utopia, interrupting the tranquility with a cold dose of reality. The city's residents awoke to the disconcerting sight of their Utopia's dark secret unfolding before their eyes. Uncomfortable truths flooded their screens, their living rooms filled with the voices of their forgotten friends and relatives. As the turmoil swirled around them, Finn couldn't shake the uncertainty gnawing at him. Watching the city's stunned reaction, he questioned the fallout of their actions. Would they be celebrated as liberators or branded as traitors? The gravity of their decision weighed on him, a constant reminder of the risks they'd taken to expose the truth. The lines between right and wrong blurred in his mind. Were they truly liberators, or had they recklessly plunged the city into an irreversible state of disorder, chaos, confusion, and overwhelming fear, leaving devastation in their wake? As chaos unfolded, a spark of hope lit within Finn's heart. He wondered if their sacrifice could lead to something greater, a chance for real change. Despite the crushing uncertainty, the thought that their actions might inspire justice filled him with fragile optimism. Perhaps this was the start of a new dawn for Utopia, built on truth instead of lies. Within minutes, the city was abuzz with confusion and shock. People poured into the streets, their eyes wide with disbelief, as they stared at the large screens scattered across the city, broadcasting the unsettling revelations. The Utopia, their safe haven, was not what it seemed, and the awareness spread like wildfire. As the chaos unfolded below, Finn and Aria exchanged a silent glance, a mixture of anticipation and anxiety flickering in their eyes. Despite the gravity of their actions, a sense of liberation washed over them, knowing they had shattered the illusion that had bound their society. Yet, as the city fell into confusion and disarray, a troubling question weighed on Finn's mind. What awaited them beyond the ruins of their broken utopia? Would a new, just order rise, or would the remnants of control reassert themselves, clinging to the power they once wielded so tightly? Finn and Aria watched the chaos from their vantage point, hearts heavy but resolute. They had ignited the spark of dissent in Utopia. Now, they could only wait if inhabitants would fan into a flame of change, or let the authorities extinguish it, choosing ignorance over reality. The secret was out, but this was just the beginning of their fight. The Utopia had fallen, and the struggle to reclaim the city had just begun. Finn and Aria knew they would face countless challenges ahead, but their resolve was unwavering, knowing the stakes were higher than they imagined. The journey ahead was uncertain, fraught with dangers and sacrifices, yet they were ready to confront whatever lay ahead. Their actions had set a powerful movement in motion, and as the first light of daybreak illuminated the city, they prepared to lead Utopia into a new dawn of truth and justice. Reclaimed, The Fall of Utopia. Chapter 4: Chaos and Consequences. The broadcast succeeded. Finn and Aria introduced doubt and dissent into utopian society, their revelations rippling through the city like a shockwave. However, their triumph fleeting. With dawn came the realization of the magnitude of their actions, and the weight bore down heavily on them. Morning brought chaos. Families stood, transfixed by their screens, disbelief etched on their faces. Conversations whispered in hushed tones, disbelief spreading through the streets. Some clung to denial, refusing to believe their utopia was tainted, while others were overcome with grief and anger. From their hideout, Finn and Aria watched as Utopia descended into confusion and turmoil. They were not in a celebratory mood. Their hearts were heavy. Seeing the faces, the disbelief, the fear, was hard to stomach. They had triggered this collapse. They had torn down the illusion of perfection. Amid the turmoil, whispers of solidarity emerged. Those who had long doubted Utopia found courage in Finn and Aria's defiance. In secluded corners and dimly lit alleys, clandestine meetings took place, voices hushed but determined. The seeds of rebellion had been sown, and though still fragile, they began to take root in the hearts of those who dared to dream of a better, freer future, one built on truth, justice, and the collective hope for meaningful change that would finally break the chains of oppression. News spread of enforcement officers in every corner of the city, their usual composed demeanour replaced with urgency. They were on high alert, given the task of calming the people, and more importantly, finding the source of the broadcast. The clock was ticking for Finn and Aria. They made the tough decision to separate, knowing being seen together would raise suspicions. Staying in different parts of the city gave them a better chance to avoid detection. As Finn walked away, he felt a pang of fear. They were rebels now, outcasts in their own city. The world they had grown up in, the only home they had ever known, had turned against them. But they had each other, and they had the truth. And for now, that was enough. They were ready to face the consequences. They were ready for the fight. The atmosphere in the city was heavy with confusion, disbelief, and a palpable sense of dread. Screens continuously displayed the aftermath of the broadcast, looping the disturbing footage and testimonies. The normally serene and harmonious streets were filled with hushed conversations and fearful glances. The utopia had lost its sheen, the perfect facade shattered. In the midst of the chaos, a sense of solidarity began to emerge among the citizens. Strangers exchanged knowing glances in the streets, a silent acknowledgement of their shared disillusionment. The once unshakable trust in the system had crumbled, replaced by a collective determination to seek the truth, no matter the risks. Back in his apartment, Finn maintained his resolve while keeping a low profile. His heart pounded in his chest every time the door chimed, every time he saw enforcement officers patrolling his block. He knew they were closing in, their hunt intensifying with every passing hour. He couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched, of being a step away from being caught. Across town, Aria was facing a similar predicament. She kept her distance from her usual haunts, avoiding her friends and family to keep them safe. She watched as the city she loved spiraled into chaos, her heart heavy with guilt, yet steeled with resolve. Beneath that guilt was a glimmer of hope. Their message had reached the people, and the seeds of doubt had been planted. As Aria navigated the shadowed alleys, her thoughts drifted to the risks they had taken. The weight of their actions pressed heavily upon her, a constant reminder of the dangerous path they had chosen. Yet, amidst the uncertainty, she couldn't shake the sense of purpose that fueled her determination. With every step she took, she vowed to uphold their cause, to fight for the truth, no matter the cost. The tension reached a peak when the city's leader, Director Voss, addressed the public. His stern face appeared on every screen, his voice echoing across the city. He dismissed the broadcast as a vicious attack, an attempt to destabilize the peace. He promised the citizens that the culprits would be brought to justice, that the harmony of utopia would be restored. As Finn watched the director's address, he felt a surge of anger. The audacity of the man, to dismiss the truth so blatantly, made Finn's resolve stronger. He knew he had to continue fighting, to expose Voss and the authority for what they were. That night, Finn and Aria connected through a secure line, their voices filled with a mix of fear and determination. They knew the fight was far from over. The broadcast had started the rebellion, but they needed to do more. They had to gather allies, to find those who believed in their cause, to bring down Voss and his twisted utopia. Despite the fear and uncertainty, they felt an odd sense of hope. The city was awake now, their eyes open to the truth. The rebellion was no longer just about Finn and Aria. It was about every citizen of Utopia, about the fall of the facade and the rise of a true utopia. The fight had just begun. As the night wore on, Finn and Aria meticulously planned their next moves, aware that each step could be their last. They mapped out safe houses, contacted allies, and devised strategies to counter the enforcement officers' relentless pursuit. Their resolve hardened with every passing moment, the bond between them growing through shared adversity. They knew they were not alone. Whispers of rebellion were turning into roars of defiance across the city. Finn and Aria were no longer just fugitives. They had become symbols of resistance, rallying points for those yearning for freedom. Morning brought a renewed sense of purpose. Finn and Aria knew the path ahead was fraught with danger, but they were ready to face it together. Their actions had ignited a spark, and now it was up to them to fan the flames of rebellion into a blaze that could consume the lies and oppression of Utopia. Fueled by determination and backed by a rising alliance of rebels, they moved boldly into the conflict, prepared to battle for a future grounded in truth and justice. The downfall of Utopia was unstoppable, and Finn and Aria stood poised to spearhead the charge, leading the fight to reclaim freedom and restore integrity to their world. Reclaimed: The Fall of Utopia. Chapter 5: The Underground Network. As days passed, tension gripped Utopia. Fear spread among the people, shattering their once perfect lives with startling revelations. Amidst the fear, curiosity sparked. Conversations evolved from whispers to bold questions, challenging the hidden truths of the authority. Director Voss and the enforcement officers struggled to regain control, but the seed of doubt had taken root. Their reassurances met with skepticism, their promises no longer holding weight. Finn and Aria's broadcast had awakened the city, and there was no turning back. As they ventured deeper into the underground network, Finn and Aria encountered unexpected pockets of resistance. Driven by grievances and inspired by the broadcast, these groups wove into a robust rebellion. Some had plotted for years, waiting for the right moment, while others found courage from Finn and Aria's broadcast. Finn and Aria decided to take the next step, finding allies. They knew they could not bring about change alone, especially now that the entire city was on high alert. They needed a network of dissenters, of believers who would join them in their cause. For that, they needed to delve into the city's underground network. Determined to find allies, Aria took the lead. Her contact, who had helped with the signal booster, was an invaluable link to the city's underground. With much at stake, she ventured into this unknown territory, hoping to find like-minded allies. As Aria delved deeper into the underground network, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Shadows flitted at the edges of her sight, and whispers followed her every move. Despite the unease, she pressed on, driven by the urgency of their mission and the hope of finding allies in this clandestine world. With each step, she drew closer to the Resistance's core and deeper into a labyrinth of secrets and danger lurking beneath Utopia's surface. Entering the underground felt like stepping into another world. The gleaming structures and landscapes of Utopia were replaced by chaotic surroundings, a stark contrast to the world above. It was a refuge for those who had dared to question the authority, for those branded as dissenters. As Aria navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the underground, she marvelled at the fortitude of its inhabitants. Each face she encountered bore marks of defiance, a silent testament to their refusal to conform to the authority's grip. Aria felt the weight of their struggles in every glance, their resilience forming the backbone of resistance. In the dimly lit tunnels, she found a community bound not by fear, but by shared determination to reclaim freedom. Amongst the rubble and shadows, hope thrived, a fragile beacon in the darkness of oppression. At first, Aria's presence was met with suspicion. She was, after all, an outsider, but as she interacted with the underground's residents, they began to see her conviction. She explained the broadcast, the exile of the imperfects, and her mission with Finn. As news circulated, curiosity ignited. The broadcast had also reached the underground, stirring strong emotions and resonating with many who heard it. In the safety of the underground, Aria found the allies they needed. The residents, disillusioned by the authorities' reign, were eager to fight for a real utopia, one free of deceit and oppression. Their motivations varied. Some were personally affected by the exiles, others simply sickened by the authorities' corruption. Yet, they were united by a shared desire for truth and justice. Among the allies, Aria met a particularly influential figure, Nolan, a former city engineer who had fallen from the authorities' grace. Always a skeptic, the broadcast confirmed his suspicions. Eager to join their cause, his knowledge of the city's infrastructure proved invaluable to their rebellion. Meanwhile, from his apartment, Finn expertly hacked into the city's systems, searching for more evidence against the authority, for any clue that could lead to the location of the exiles. His coding skills, once used to maintain the city's tranquility, were now the weapon to dismantle it. Finn and Aria stayed connected, updating each other on their progress. Every new ally, every piece of information was a victory, pushing them closer to their goal. Despite the danger, they felt hopeful. They weren't alone anymore. They had a rebellion growing in Utopia. Amidst the chaos, whispers of dissent echoed through the pristine streets of Utopia. Citizens who had long remained silent now found their voices, emboldened by Finn and Aria's defiance. Graffiti appeared on walls, bearing slogans of resistance, while clandestine meetings took place in darkened alleyways. The revolution ignited a spark within the populace, a flicker of hope that refused to be extinguished. The city was still in shock, but the status quo was cracking. Director Voss and the enforcement officers struggled to regain control, their facade crumbling. The underground network was growing, and so was the spirit of rebellion. Finn and Aria knew the road ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty, yet they were undeterred. They had sparked a revolution, and there was no going back. The fall of Utopia was in full swing, and the dawn of a new era was on the horizon. The network they'd created was no longer a patchwork of isolated cells. It had grown into a unified force with a shared vision. Strategies took shape, plans emerged, and with each passing day, their numbers grew. Citizens, inspired by Finn and Aria's courage, began organising, readying themselves, and nurturing hopes for a future where Utopia could live up to its name. As dawn's first light broke through the shadows, Finn and Aria stood side by side, prepared for whatever lay ahead. Their journey was just beginning, but with loyal allies and a city awakening to the truth, they were ready to fight for a Utopia that would welcome all, flaws and all. The dawn of a new era was no longer a distant dream. It was nearly within reach. Reclaimed, the Fall of Utopia. Chapter 6, The Exiles. While Aria was building an alliance in the underground network, Finn's investigation into the city's system led him to a breakthrough. Buried in the encrypted network, he stumbled upon a remote data stream. This stream, isolated from the general populace and heavily encrypted, was hidden from all but the most determined searchers. After painstaking efforts, Finn accessed the stream. He uncovered another layer of deception. Alongside the surveillance footage were encrypted files detailing the authorities' experiments on the exiles. These files hinted at sinister scientific endeavours, suggesting that the exiles were not only monitored, but also subjected to inhumane tests in the name of progress. This discovery intensified Finn's resolve to uncover the truth and seek justice for the wronged. With careful coding, Finn managed to break into the stream. What he uncovered was chilling. It was a live feed, a continuous surveillance record of the exiles. The imperfects weren't just cast out. They were being closely monitored, their lives outside Utopia a grotesque reality show for the authority. The footage showed harsh landscapes, much different from the artificially controlled environment of Utopia. There were forests, deserts, and marshlands, places where survival was a struggle. Exiled from the city's comforts, they faced relentless challenges each day. The discovery was devastating. These were the forgotten members of their society, banished for their imperfections. They were mothers, fathers, siblings and friends who had been stripped from their lives and sent into this wilderness. Their memories erased, their existence denied. Survival had become a cruel game. Overcome with horror, yet determined, Finn shared his findings with Aria. The revelation hit her hard, a reminder of the authorities' ruthless rule. But the coordinates were a breakthrough. They could potentially rescue the exiles, bring them back, and expose the authorities' inhumane treatment. Their mission had grown beyond their initial plans. It was no longer just about revealing the truth. It was about rescuing the forgotten and reclaiming Utopia for all its citizens. The stakes were high, but so was their resolve. Equipped with the coordinates, Finn and Aria convened with the underground network, igniting a new urgency in their mission. The images of the exiles, their living conditions, and their struggles were a harsh reminder of the cost of Utopia's perfection. They had to act, and they had to act fast. Aria presented the information to the Alliance. The revelation of the exiles' fate led to an outbreak of anger and horror among the members. Some had lost loved ones, friends who had vanished under mysterious circumstances, now recognized as exiles. The harsh truth of their fate weighed heavily, strengthening their determination to topple the ruling authority. The newly formed rebellion set their sights on a rescue mission. With the coordinates in hand, they could locate the exiles, but traversing the harsh terrain and ensuring their safe return would be no small feat. Still, they were resolute. The exiles were their people, their family. They could not abandon them in such isolation. Nolan, with his extensive knowledge of the city's system, took the lead in devising the plan. They would need a team, resources, and a transport mechanism to bring back the exiles. The task was enormous, and the risk of getting caught was high. But the thought of their people suffering was a potent motivator. As Nolan meticulously drafted the intricate rescue plan, tensions ran high among the rebellion. Each member felt the weight of responsibility pressing down upon them. The risks were immense, but the thought of leaving their people to suffer in exile was unbearable. They knew they had to succeed, not just for the sake of the exiles, but for the future of Utopia itself. Amid the flurry of preparations, Aria struggled with a tempest of emotions, her determination clashing with creeping doubts. Could they truly challenge the authority and emerge victorious? The road ahead seemed daunting, but she drew strength from the unwavering resolve of her comrades. Together, they pressed on, fueled by hope and a deep belief that everyone deserved a chance in the quest for a better world. They were united in their resolve that no one should be overlooked in this journey toward a brighter future. Meanwhile, Finn meticulously crafted a distraction, knowing a mission of this scale wouldn't escape the authorities' notice. With his deep understanding of the city's system, he started devising a city-wide disruption. He knew that diverting the attention of the enforcement officers would be crucial in giving the rescue team the time they needed. Every piece of code he wrote was a step closer to ensuring their plan's success, and he worked with a sense of urgency that matched the gravity of their mission. What had started as a quest for truth had transformed into a full-blown resistance movement. Finn and Aria, once ordinary citizens, were now leading a rebellion. The Fall of Utopia was closer than ever, yet the journey was unfinished. The exiles needed rescue, the authority had to be exposed, and Utopia was waiting to be reclaimed. Hope still lingered in their hearts. In gearing up for the pivotal stage of their mission, they were acutely aware of the towering risks. Yet, bolstered by steadfast allies and the resilience honed through shared hardships, they were prepared for whatever awaited them. This battle went beyond personal stakes. It was for the forgotten, for justice, and for a future where no one would be abandoned. Their resolve was rooted not just in survival, but in building a world where everyone mattered. Reclaimed, The Fall of Utopia. Chapter 7, The Great Disturbance. Time was of the essence as each day brought the authorities closer to finding the source of the broadcast and the ensuing unrest. Finn and Aria knew they had to act quickly. The rescue mission planning was in full swing, along with preparations for a city-wide disruption. In the depths of the underground network, a diverse team assembled, Defectors from the enforcement officers, ordinary citizens driven by conscience, and other brave souls, each with a crucial role in the rescue mission. Tensions ran high as team members prepared, grappling with fears and doubts about the impact of their efforts. Despite the uncertainty, a strong sense of camaraderie united them. They drew strength from one another, finding solace in their shared mission for justice and freedom. Nolan and Aria led the team with meticulous planning. Maps were drawn, paths marked, and contingencies prepared. They had to be ready for anything. The exile lands were unpredictable, and the journey held constant dangers. Survival was uncertain. Meanwhile, in his apartment, Finn meticulously prepared his part of the plan. Creating a program, a digital weapon, he aimed to divert the authorities' attention and create chaos, buying the rescue team the time they needed. Nagging doubts about causing irreparable damage to the city plagued him, but the greater good outweighed his fears. With determined resolve, he pushed aside his qualms and continued with his mission, knowing the fate of countless lives depended on his actions. Finn planned a series of disruptions affecting every aspect of utopian life, from traffic management and communication networks to utility controls and surveillance feeds. The city would be plunged into unprecedented chaos, keeping the authorities occupied. As the day of the mission approached, anticipation hung heavy in the air. The risks were immense, but there was no turning back. The rebellion was ready, the plan was set. The countdown to the Great Disturbance and the daring rescue mission had begun. The day of the mission arrived, and the city was abuzz, its citizens unaware of the imminent chaos. In the underground network, the rescue team was ready. Aria and Nolan led with determination. In his apartment, Finn initiated his program, and with a few taps on his keyboard, the Great Disturbance began. Utopia's tranquility shattered, traffic lights malfunctioned, communication lines scrambled, utility controls went haywire, and surveillance feeds became erratic. At enforcement headquarters, chaos ensued as officers rushed to contain the situation. Director Voss watched the disorder unfold, a clear sign of defiance. Amidst the city's turmoil, the rescue team embarked on their mission, guided by Finn's coordinates. As they left the city limits, they looked back at the chaos, their hearts heavy with hope. The journey was arduous, with harsh terrain contrasting sharply with their artificial city. They witnessed landscapes they had only read about but pressed on, driven by the image of the suffering exiles. Amidst the chaos, whispers of dissent echoed through the streets. Some citizens viewed Finn's disruption as liberation, a glimmer of hope in a controlled society, while others feared the unknown. Yet, the yearning for change was undeniable, lingering like a promise yet to be fulfilled. In the city, Finn managed the disruption, engaged in a digital tug-of-war with the city's systems. His every move was countered, but he remained relentless, knowing the rebellion depended on his actions. The city was in chaos, the authority struggling to regain control. The rescue team faced the wilds to save the exiles, while Finn battled codes in a fight for freedom. The Fall of Utopia was more than a broadcast. It was a revolution, raging in the city's heart and beyond. As Finn continued his digital assault, he noticed subtle shifts in the system's responses. It was as if the city itself was fighting back, an intricate dance of code and counter. Code. The stakes were higher than ever, each keystroke a step closer to either victory or disaster. Yet he couldn't help but feel a surge of hope. Each disrupted feed and error message flashing across enforcement headquarters screens signalled the rebellion's persistence. Meanwhile, the rescue team forged ahead through hostile terrain, determined to push through and complete their mission, undeterred by the challenges around them. Each step showcased their resolve to bring the exiles home. The landscapes they crossed served as stark reminders of what lay beyond their controlled space, a world both breathtaking and harsh, beautiful yet unforgiving. They pressed on, undeterred. Despite knowing the risks, the exiles' suffering drove them onward. Each mile was a small victory against the oppressive forces they aimed to topple. In the city, murmurs of dissent steadily grew louder, hinting at the change to come. Their courage became a beacon for others in hiding. Finn's disruptions had done more than just create chaos. They had ignited a spark of hope among the citizens. People began to question the very foundation of their society, the whispers turning into murmurs of rebellion. Some saw Finn's actions as a beacon of liberation, a chance to break free from the suffocating control of the authority. While others held tight to the familiar order of their lives, a strong desire for change was settling in the air. The rescue team's mission was far from over, and Finn's digital battle still blazed fiercely, yet the seeds of revolution had already sprouted. The Fall of Utopia didn't signify a single event, but rather the dawn of a lasting transformation. Finn, Aria, and their allies pressed on, conscious that their pursuit of freedom was only in its infancy. This revolution would persist, driven by the unwavering hope and relentless resolve of those brave enough to dream of a better future. With every step forward, the path to liberation grew clearer, guiding them toward an uncharted destiny. Reclaimed, The Fall of Utopia. Chapter 8. A Journey Through the Wastes. The wilderness was merciless, harsher than they imagined. Miles of untouched land lay ahead of the rescue team, a testament to the world Utopia had chosen to ignore. They trekked through forests and climbed over hills, their journey mirroring the struggle of the exiles they sought. As they ventured deeper into the wild, they began to understand the enormity of the punishment meted out to the exiles. This was a harsh existence, far from the comfort and safety of Utopia. Facing this harsh reality fortified their determination to succeed. In the city, Finn was locked in his digital duel. Despite the system's relentless attempts to regain control, he managed to maintain the chaos. But he knew he couldn't hold off forever. The system was learning, adapting to his disruptions, and he was running out of tricks. In the heart of Utopia, a covert faction of rebels gathered in secrecy. They observed Finn's disruptive actions with hopeful anticipation, viewing them as the spark for the change they had been eagerly awaiting for so long. His boldness inspired them to act. As the city teetered on the brink of upheaval, they plotted their own moves, ready to seize the opportunity presented by the chaos. Their secret gatherings buzzed with anticipation, fueled by the hope that Finn's actions would finally shatter the illusion of control that had imprisoned them all. Back in the wilderness, the rescue team finally reached the exiles' location. It was a ramshackle settlement, built from scavenged materials and perched precariously on the edge of a cliff. As they approached, they were met with stares of disbelief and wariness. These were people who had been discarded, who had learned to mistrust and fear. Aria stepped forward, her voice trembling as she spoke. She told them about the rebellion, about their mission to rescue them, and their plan to expose the authority. It was a lot for the exiles to take in, their years of isolation making them skeptical. But amongst the distrust, there was a glimmer of hope. Some of the exiles recognized their friends and family among the rescue team. These reunions, filled with tears and disbelief, brought moments of joy amidst the grim reality. And with each reunion, the walls of skepticism began to crumble. The exiles started to believe, started to hope. The rescue mission began to seem feasible. With the exiles on their side, the rescue team started preparations for the journey back. The logistics were challenging, but they had come equipped with provisions and a transport vehicle sufficient for the exiles. What they hadn't prepared for was the bond the exiles had formed with their home. As the rescue team finalised preparations, a palpable tension hung in the air. Each member felt the weight of responsibility on their shoulders, knowing that the success of their mission meant more than bringing the exiles home. It was a chance to ignite hope in the hearts of those forgotten, a chance to challenge the regime of Utopia and pave the way for a new dawn of freedom. With determination etched on their faces, they braced themselves for the challenges that lay ahead, ready to face whatever obstacles stood in their path. Some of the exiles were hesitant to leave. This was the only life they remembered, the only home they knew. The promise of Utopia seemed alien to them, a dream. But they were persuaded by their rescuers, by their own kin, who had ventured into the unknown to find them. Slowly, the exiles began to pack, their apprehension replaced by curiosity and hope. Back in Utopia, Finn struggled to maintain the disruption. The system was closing in, his codes getting countered faster. He was running out of time. He had to hold off until the rescue team returned, until the exiles were safely back. His fight was not just against the system anymore, it was a fight against time. In the midst of the chaos gripping Utopia, whispers of rebellion began to spread among the citizens. The prolonged disruption of the system had left them questioning the very foundation of their society. Some began to wonder if there was more to life beyond the confines of their controlled existence. These murmurs of doubt planted seeds of rebellion, igniting a spark of defiance that threatened to engulf the city in revolution. Director Voss, struggling to maintain order, now confronted a growing tide of unrest that threatened to engulf his authority. Director Voss was growing increasingly desperate. The city was still in chaos, the system still out of control. The enforcement officers were unable to contain the situation, their authority crumbling. But amidst the chaos, he noticed something peculiar, a large transport vehicle missing from the city's fleet, a clue that led him to the realization of what was truly going on. The rescue team was en route to Utopia, the exiles in tow. They had braved the wilderness, found the forgotten citizens, and were bringing them home. But their mission was far from over. With Finn struggling to hold the city's system and Director Voss on their trail, their journey back was set to be as challenging as the journey through the wastes. The fight to reclaim Utopia was reaching its climax, the fate of the exiles and the rebellion hanging in the balance. Reclaimed, the Fall of Utopia. Chapter 9, The Return and the Revelation. The journey back to Utopia was tense. The exiles were anxious, and the rescue team remained vigilant, scanning their surroundings for any signs of enforcement officers. The city was still in chaos from Finn's ongoing disruptions, but they knew it was only a matter of time before the authorities regained control. As they neared the city's outskirts, Aria reached out to Finn. Their encrypted communication line was lifeline to the chaos in the city. Finn, despite struggling with the system's countermeasures, offered reassurance. He was buying them as much time as he could. Finn's fingers flew over the keyboard, executing commands with a blend of precision and urgency. A sense of dread settled in his stomach. He knew the consequences of his actions would be severe. The weight of his decision bore down on him like a burden, yet he steeled himself, drawing upon an ounce of resolve. In that moment, as lines of code filled his screen, Finn fully embraced his responsibility, aware that Utopia's fate hung in the balance of his digital storm. In his apartment, Finn was on edge. His codes were being countered faster, the system's response growing more aggressive. He had to step up his game. In a desperate moment, he did something unthinkable. He unleashed his most destructive code yet, a digital storm designed to wipe the city's data and plunge Utopia into darkness. Meanwhile, the rescue team managed to reach the underground network with the exiles. The sight of the exiles' return overwhelmed the rebellion members. The exiles, dazed and disoriented, were welcomed back, their return marking a significant victory for the rebellion. During the joyous reunion, Aria received an urgent message from Finn. His latest disruption had escalated the situation. The city's system was not just countering his codes, it was tracing them back to their source. He was exposed, and it was only a matter of time before the enforcement officers would be at his doorstep. Finn's exposure sent a wave of panic through the rebellion. Finn was their key asset, the brains behind their resistance. They couldn't afford to lose him. A rescue mission was quickly planned, with Nolan and a team of defectors venturing out to extract Finn before the authorities got to him. The rebellion, just moments after a victorious return, found itself embroiled in another rescue mission. As Finn waited in his apartment, surrounded by the hum of his computer and the encroaching threat of the enforcement officers, he couldn't shake the nagging feeling of uncertainty. Doubt crept into his mind, questioning whether his actions were truly worth the cost. But amidst the chaos and fear, a spark of determination ignited within him. He knew that even if his stand against the authorities was futile, he had to make an attempt. For him, for the rebellion, for hope of a better future. The atmosphere in Finn's apartment grew increasingly tense. With each passing moment, the enforcement officers drew nearer. As he awaited the rescue team, Finn resolved to take a stand. He would use his expertise and codes one final time to fend off the enforcement officers, determined to hold them back until help arrived. This was his last chance to fight for freedom. In the underground network, Aria felt a surge of anxiety. The rescue team was out there, trying to bring Finn back, but time was slipping away. The tension hung thick in the air. As she waited, Aria reflected on the cost of their rebellion and the sacrifices made for their cause. Meanwhile, Director Voss, tracking disturbances linked to Finn, guided the enforcement officers toward the apartment, determined to quell the rebellion and restore order in Utopia. The revelation of Finn's role in the disruptions was a shock, but it only fueled his determination. The rescue team arrived just in time. As the enforcement officers closed in on Finn's apartment, Nolan and his team managed to extract Finn, but not before Finn had unleashed one last disruption, a digital firestorm that wiped significant data from the city's system, causing a temporary blackout. As the chaos faded following Finn's rescue, Aria wrestled with mixed feelings. Relief flooded her knowing he was safe, yet guilt lingered, gnawing at her conscience. She felt torn between joy for his safety and the weight of her own choices. The echoes of the past haunted her. She couldn't shake the feeling that their actions, though necessary for their cause, had brought about untold suffering to innocent citizens caught in the crossfire of their rebellion. With a heavy heart, she knew that their fight for Utopia's freedom would demand even greater sacrifices in the days to come. Finn's successful extraction plunged Utopia into darkness. The rebellion had managed to save one of their own, their victory marred only by the revelation of Finn's role in the chaos. Director Voss was left in the darkened city, his authority challenged, his pursuit of the rebellion more determined than ever. The return of the exiles, Finn's daring rescue, and Utopia's descent into darkness significantly altered the balance of power, marking a pivotal moment in the unfolding conflict. These events reshaped alliances and ignited tensions that would change everything. The rebellion was gaining momentum, their resistance against the authority becoming increasingly daring. However, the journey to reclaim Utopia remained filled with obstacles. The ultimate confrontation loomed on the horizon, with the destiny of Utopia resting precariously in the balance, ready to unfold in a climactic struggle for freedom and justice. Reclaimed: The Fall of Utopia. Chapter 10: The Fall and Rise of Utopia. With Finn safe and the exiles back in the city, the rebellion prepared for their decisive action. They aimed to reveal the authorities' secrets, the exile lands, and the true cost of Utopia's peace. They would broadcast their story, the truth, to every home, every device, and every citizen. Preparations began in earnest, with the exiles being interviewed and their survival stories recorded. Finn and a team of former communication department workers developed a system to override the city's communication networks. The underground network buzzed with activity, united for a singular objective. Meanwhile, in the darkened city, Director Voss was frantic. His control was crumbling, his city in chaos. The enforcement officers struggled to maintain order, the blackout adding to the confusion. Amidst the turmoil, he was resolved to locate the rebels and restore his authority. The moment of truth arrived. The broadcast was ready, the rebellion story recorded and compiled. Finn initiated the broadcast, his fingers dancing on the keyboard as he bypassed the city's systems. And then, it was live. The screens across the city lit up, the rebellion's message echoing through city. The broadcast was shocking. The people of Utopia confronted the stark reality, their utopian bubble shattered. They saw the exile lands, heard the stories of their fellow citizens, and realized the extent of the authorities' deception. The rebellion's message was clear, their call for change echoing through the city. In his headquarters, Director Voss watched the broadcast, his control slipping away. The truth was out, the rebellion's voice echoing in every corner of the city. His dream of maintaining order was crumbling around him, his city's faith in the authority shattered. Utopia was in a state of revelation. The truth had been unveiled, the city's tranquility shattered. The rebellion had made their move, their message loud and clear. The fall of Utopia was more than just a disruption. It was the rise of a new order, a call for change. As the truth resonated across the city, the rebellion braced for the inevitable confrontation with the enforcement officers. Nolan led the defense, strategically stationing members throughout the network. Aria stood at the helm, her voice filled with quiet determination. The exiles, despite their years of hardship, volunteered to defend the cause that had given them a glimmer of hope. Outside, Utopia was stirring. The broadcast had sparked questions. Whispers of dissent began to permeate the city. The citizens, now aware of the authorities' manipulations, started to question the cost of their peace. Unrest spread as the city began to rebel. Back at enforcement headquarters, Voss made his last desperate move. Mobilizing remaining loyal officers, he marched toward the source of the broadcast, determined to crush the rebellion once and for all. The city's fate hung in the balance as the authority made its way toward the underground network. The final confrontation was fierce and unyielding. Nolan and the rebellion defended their haven fiercely. They were fighting for more than just their survival. They were fighting for a future, for a fair utopia. The underground network shook with the clash, the echo of their fight ringing through the tunnels. Amidst the turmoil, Aria faced Voss. Their meeting became a clash of ideologies, highlighting their conflicting beliefs about utopia. Each stood firm, determined to defend their vision, making the confrontation more intense. Aria, with her unwavering determination and belief in the right to freedom, challenged Voss's vision of a controlled, utopian society. As the dust settled and the echoes of the conflict faded, Aria stood amid the wreckage, her eyes reflecting exhaustion and unwavering resolve. She knew that the battle was won, but the war for true freedom had just begun. With a solemn nod to her comrades, she faced the dawn-lit horizon, prepared to lead the charge into a future where the shadows of oppression would never again cast darkness upon the land. Hope surged within her. Voss was defeated, his dream of a controlled utopia crumbling around him. The city awoke to a new dawn, a dawn of revelation and revolution. The rebellion's fight had not been in vain. They had exposed the fall of Utopia and sparked the rise of a new order, a true utopia built on truth, freedom, and equality. In the aftermath of the rebellion's victory, amidst the rubble of the old order, a sense of unity began to emerge among the citizens of Utopia. With the truth laid bare and the oppressive regime dismantled, people from all walks of life came together to rebuild their city anew. Former adversaries found common ground in the shared desire for a fair and just society. Community centres emerged as vital spaces for discussion and cooperation. Artists created murals that illustrated the revolution's challenges and victories, motivating future generations to embrace the ideals of truth and freedom. These vibrant expressions of art fostered a sense of unity and hope within the community. As the sun rose, its warm glow enveloping the city, hope flourished in the hearts of its people, heralding the arrival of a brighter tomorrow. Together, they embraced the possibilities ahead. The tale of Utopia's fall and rise exemplified the resilience of the human spirit, illustrating the struggle against oppression. It was a journey of self-discovery, a challenge to the status quo, and a bold vision for a brighter future. Once a bastion of control and deceit, the dystopian city of Utopia was liberated, signalling the dawn of a transformative era. This narrative became a beacon of hope, inspiring others to believe in the possibility of change and the power of collective action in the face of adversity.